I will immediately call on Sir Chris Bryant to move the motion, and then I will call the Minister to respond, and there will not be any opportunity for the member in charge to wind up, as is the convention, for 30-minute debates. Order, order. Sir Chris Bryant to move the motion.
Mr Henderson, it's a delight to see you in the chair. The first time I've seen you in the chair, so many congratulations on your elevation. Some have greatness thrust upon them. And I beg to move that we have considered the matter of the universal service obligation and its operation in the Rhondda constituency. I should say I'm here as a backbencher, though quite often I'm up against the Minister in debates from the front bench, but it's a different kind of arrangement today. The universal service obligation is absolutely essential part of delivering many public services up and down the land. Just to be clear, it says that there should be 6 days a week letter delivery, that there should be next day delivery for first-class letters, which, as we all know, are now quite expensive, and within 3 days delivery for second-class letters. Now, the challenge, I fully understand, over recent years has been tough for the Royal Mail. Letters are down from 14.3 billion in 2011-2012 to 7.3 billion in 2022-2023, and parcels are up from 2.6 billion in 2018-19 to 3.6 billion in 22-23. And it will be very easy for the Royal Mail to conclude that their future lies in parcels and not in letters. But I simply want to say, Mr Henderson, on behalf of my constituents in the Rhondda, and I suspect the same would be said by many MPs in every constituency in the land, that the service that they are getting at the moment doesn't meet that universal service obligation, and it is a problem for individuals, for our public services, and for our economy. Let me just talk through some of the issues that my constituents have faced. In the last 3 years, we've dealt with a vast number of cases that have come in by email, letters and on the phone. We've created more than 100 individual cases in casework relating to Royal Mail issues. And all of these cases share some very specific things. Sporadic arrival of mail, no mail sometimes at all received for weeks, and large bundles are all arriving at once. This is not, incidentally, people saying, I'm complaining that they're not getting any letters from anybody because nobody loves them. This is people saying that they know a letter is due and it doesn't arrive, even when it's had a first-class stamp on it. The most common complaint is late delivery resulting in missed hospital appointments and fines. These are not isolated locations in the Rhondda, it's across the whole of the Rhondda, but it's a persistent problem that residents have been reporting since 2019, and I have regularly tried with local managers to try and get to the nub of these issues. I'm endlessly being promised that it's going to be sorted, and it never is. Of course, all of my constituents are full of praise for their local post workers, who in rain and in sunshine, I worry about sunshine, I've had melanoma myself, I know the dangers of skin cancer, I do want to make sure that there is proper protection for postal workers, but many of the issues that they are facing, then they complain about, are the same issues that my constituents then complain about. The postal workers have told us of the following issues: not enough base staff to cover all rounds, staff holidays and staff sicknesses coming at peak times and making it impossible to maintain the USO, management prioritising parcels over post, and I know that the Select Committee has looked at this very closely. There's clear evidence that this is still happening, and it is problematic. Rounds being far too big and undeliverable, vans not large enough for the parcels and the post, so postal workers have to go back to the sorting office and making multiple trips, and no overtime is offered for that. I've met with the Royal Mail management team at the sorting offices multiple times, and they always say that it's a matter of staff sickness, it's all going to be sorted next time, and then it never is. I've been told also anonymously that staff are paid overtime to clear the mail before I get there. Which shows, so when I arrive at the sorting office, it's all perfect and there's no mail waiting to go out. And then I'm told anonymously that once I've gone, somebody gets it back in the van and it goes back into the sorting office. Now that, if that is true, it is obviously a deliberate attempt to mislead the Member of Parliament, and I'm sure the Minister would want to condemn it. I'll just go through some of the specific cases we've had. Yes, I can. I think it's fine.
Rhondda.
I commend the honourable gentleman and what he's bringing forward here today, and he's right. Does the honourable member not agree that there must be a greater obligation under the Universal Postal Service order for availability in the rural areas? And I understand that's an issue for him as well. There is no substitution for a full service post office, and these obligations should be clearly defined in law. I think the honourable gentleman is pushing for that. If it's going to be in law, then it will be his advantage and everybody else's advantage as well.
If I'm honest, I just want to get it sorted in my constituency. I want them to do the job that they're required to do in law already, and I just don't think that that's happening. And I suspect that 650 MPs could give exactly the same story. Let me just give you one instance, Mr. Henderson. Nicola Thomas, she wrote to me, I received an invite to book an appointment, a reminder of that invitation, and a letter saying, we've removed you from the list because we haven't heard from you, all in the same delivery from the local health board. Well, that is clearly a nonsense. Another resident, all her mail is taking over 3 weeks to arrive. She received a letter on the 15th of April, which was dated the 19th of March. She's disabled, she's had numerous hospital appointments notifications that haven't arrived on time. When she called the hospital to apologise for not attending, they say everyone is having the same problem, and I can confirm that. They've tried to call the clinic and sorting office, nobody ever answers. They've tried calling the main headquarters, nobody ever answers. Their postie told them that his boss at clinic said parcels take priority over letters. This is manifestly wrong. Their partner, who lives in Porth, where I also live, paid £70 to have their mail redirected, but the new tenant is still bringing letters to him. They've also tried to complain, but they can never speak to a human. A resident in William Street in Ustrad said, we only get mail every 3 to 4 weeks. This has been an ongoing issue since last November. They've now stopped delivering parcels too. Royal Mail have said there isn't enough time for the postperson to deliver to William Street at all, with no plans to resolve the issue. I have to go to the sorting office in Ferndale if I want to receive any mail, which is sometimes difficult with the restrictive opening hours. Awful service. I agree, incidentally, about the restricted opening hours. We all know the saga of one of those little notes being put through the door saying that they tried to deliver a parcel and you weren't there. Sometimes it feels as if it's the 5 minutes that you were out of the house that they managed to find that moment to put it through. But now they've restricted the hours when you can go and pick it up from the sorting office as well. This is not a proper service which is effective or efficient for my community. Ethan Jenkins says, postmen are now delivering for Amazon and Yodel as well as their own. They're delivering stuff daily that can be picked up at your local store, still delivering toilet rolls, crates of alcohol, crates of pop. What they're delivering shouldn't be delivered by Royal Mail, but a courier whose only job is parcels. And this is a real issue, I think, for the Royal Mail to consider about how they make sure that letters get through. Gaynor Harvey said, I think that most of us are having difficulty getting our mail delivered. I'm not sure that there's any difference between a first-class or second-class stamp anymore, except for the price of the stamp. Mail locally can take up to a week to get to where it's supposed to. And Nita Bianca from Trialao said, we're lucky to get post once every 2 to 3 weeks in Trialao. I've missed numerous hospital appointments due to this, and I probably would have missed a lot more if I didn't have the NHS text reminder to tell me that I have an upcoming appointment. And I should say, incidentally, letters will still always be important for the post office, for the local health board, for the simple reason that lots of people in my constituency don't have access to internet at home. Their emails are not reliable in terms of being directed to the person who is meant to receive them. So it's difficult to send an email invitation to an appointment if you can't guarantee that the only person who's going to open it is the person to whom it is directed, because that's an issue for GDPR. And many people simply don't have smartphones, in particular the elderly, many who rely on NHS services in my constituency. So it's all the more important that we make sure that letters are able to get through. I've also had significant numbers of constituents who've been caught speeding. This is an issue. Whether the speed limit is 20 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour, 40 miles an hour, 50, it doesn't matter. People get caught speeding, or they get caught in a yellow box when and they get sent a notice by the local police force or the safety team. And quite often these arrive 3-4 weeks late, long after the date when you can simply fess up and pay half the fine in time. And so that's adding to the administrative burden, it's adding to the costs for individuals. Sometimes these letters are getting completely lost, and that is problematic, again, for public services, for local government, and for my constituents. Now, my colleague, the Senate member for the Rhondda, Buffy Williams, did a report a few weeks on this, and it emphasised two things. First of all, that this is a very significant problem for a large number of my constituents. 26% of the people who responded to her survey said that they had missed NHS appointments. Now, I don't need Mr Henderson to underline to you, because we all know that there's a problem across the whole of the United Kingdom about the backlog in the NHS. If the NHS is sending out invitations to appointments and people don't get them in time and then don't turn up, that is a hideous waste of resources within the NHS. So making sure that the Royal Mail performs its function properly in relation to this is part of making sure that we get the NHS back on its... Well, I think I'm only meant to do one in these short debates, if the honourable member doesn't mind. Mr Henderson, I'm not quite sure of my timing. If you wanted to remind me at any point how much longer I should go on, that would be... the Minister will always say, stop now, but... I heard that laughter over there. Post matters. Letters matter. It's not just appointments and fines. It's also banks. Quite often they need to send out material in a timely fashion that gets to the person that needs it, including credit cards and bank cards and things like that. This is all the more important now because we don't have a single bank left in the Rhondda constituency. And several of the banks are closing now in Pontypridd as well, so any kind of physical contact with the bank might mean going down into Cardiff, which would be a considerable journey for many people in my constituency. So yet again, it is all the more important that you have a proper system. But I also want to say that actually birthday cards matter. It would be really nice if everybody in the Rhondda who was sent a birthday card in a first-class stamp on it got it on their birthday, rather than 2 or 3 weeks after. I cannot tell you how many constituents have said to me how upset they have felt when no birthday cards have arrived at all, when they know that their family would always want to make sure that that arrived on time. I think there are important things the Royal Mail need to do. First of all, if it is true that they've been trying to obscure the problems that they really have locally, then they should apologise and they should make clear that they've done that and they will not do so again. Secondly, they need to employ enough staff to do the job properly. And they need to value those staff so that they will do the job properly, so that they feel enthused about coming into work and so that they don't feel constantly being battered into submission by a system which simply doesn't allow them the room to do their job properly. Secondly, they need to make sure that letters are prioritised, not second-rate citizens compared to parcels. And whatever their future aspirations may be about the USO, I'm not here to talk about that today. I simply want them to adhere by the USO today. That means first-class letters get delivered the next day. I also want the Royal Mail to have a proper process of complaining so that they can log the issues that arise. If you can't speak to an individual when you ring because you've not had any post for 3 weeks and you're worrying about whether there's a letter coming from the NHS, surely, to goodness, there must be a proper system of logging that and making sure it happens. Finally, Mr Henderson, I would dearly love for the Royal Mail in the Rhondda to get back to the system we had maybe 10 years ago when all of this functioned much more efficiently. I think that is in the interest of our public services, it's in the interest of our constituents, it's in the interest of our community. And it would just be nice if it were easy to pick up a parcel. I note, Mr Henderson, that you are encouraging me to shut up. I shall shut up now.
Minister. Thank you, Mr Henderson. Sorry. I was so enthralled by
really?
Sir Chris that I should have been saying the question is that this House has considered the Universal Postal Service order in Rhondda constituency. Minister.
Great. Thank you, Mr Henderson. It's a pleasure to serve with you in the chair. Would you mind indicating what time we're due to conclude? Because I'm a little bit lost in terms. 4:54. 4:54. I'm very grateful, Mr Henderson. We can thank the honourable member for, I couldn't believe he's not right honourable actually anyway, the honourable member for securing today's very important debate. But I will touch on the specific situation in Rhondda as well as the wider situation, but I would like to just talk about the wider situation at first if I can. Clearly we absolutely recognise the points he makes. This is very important to our constituents, mail for all kinds of different reasons, and not least in terms of things like the from hospital appointments, but also things like cards and letters, which are very important to our constituents and will remain so. In the last financial year, all postal operators delivered around 3.6 billion parcels across the UK, and Royal Mail delivered 7.3 billion addressed letters. And we'll come to the point on the prioritisation shortly. He didn't really refer directly to any changes in the universal service obligation, and he wants to leave that for another day. I fully accept that's what he wants to push on.
The sitting is suspended for 15 minutes for a division in the House.
Save it.
I will allow 10 minutes for each subsequent division. Order. Order, order. The sitting is resumed. The debate may now continue until 15:17.
Mr. Henderson, if I can just resume, just on the universal service obligation, which I know the general obligation wasn't something that the honourable member focused too much on, but I think it's important to say we believe the 6-day-a-week service should remain. We've been very clear about that. Ofcom has the primary duty to secure its provision, despite the fact letter volumes have halved in the last decade, which has put further pressure on the service and making it viable. We do think it is right that the Prime Minister and I very clear that the importance of maintaining a Saturday delivery service provides flexibility and convenience, and we will not countenance scrapping it, not least because of the impacts that would have on things like the greeting card industry and the magazine industry. On the main point that the honourable member raised on general quality of service, and I will come to Rhondda specifically, we do understand we have had a number of complaints. It's one of the most frequent items that come across my desk in terms of correspondence or meetings with fellow members of Parliament. Ofcom obviously has a power to investigate and take enforcement action where failures are identified. It did when it fined Royal Mail £5.6 million early this year for its contravention of conditions in 2022-2023. Ofcom is obviously monitoring this to make sure service improves. The latest published quality of service results for Q3 of 2023-24 showed it continues to fail to meet its first and second class delivery targets. It is quite clear that service isn't at the level we want to see. I have met myself with the Chief Executive of the parent group, Martin Seidenberg, and made that point to him clearly. He accepted this was the case and things need to improve. One thing on privatisation, which the honourable member referred to, Ofcom did look at this, whether this was a feature of some of the problems behind the service level issues. It didn't identify any suggestion. It didn't have, and I'm not saying he did, I'm just thinking important to put on record, but he was referring to, is it prioritising parcels over letters? And this is what I looked at, sorry, to be clear. Ofcom didn't identify any suggestion that Royal Mail's senior management had directed the prioritisation of parcels. Nevertheless, I think we're all concerned about anecdotal stories at a local level. This may be the case, and we absolutely do not want to see that as being the case. What the strategy for Royal Mail Martin Seidenberg set out, which gave me some comfort, although it's actions, not words, we want to see, accelerated recruitment of permanent workers, reinforced operational management at the regional and local levels, and tackling sickness and absence. There have been 3,000 additional postal workers recruited. Also introduced new sickness and attendance policies, which it claims is playing a significant part in reducing absence. Royal Mail recently delivered its best performing Christmas period in 4 years, with more than 99% of items posted before the last recommended posting dates arriving by Christmas Eve. It's also encouraging to note that following the agreement with the CWU, results are beginning to improve, with sickness absence reported down by about 25% by the end of December compared to 2022, and only 0.2% of the daily 54,000 walks not being resourced on any given day by the end of December. Royal Mail advises its most recent performance data from the start of 2024 is much stronger, particularly in terms of service levels for first-class mail, reflecting some of the changes that have been made. Clearly, I say it's actions, not words. I know he won't be satisfied until he sees that on the ground.
Will you allow?
Of course.
I wonder whether you could just do me a favour. Could he ask Royal Mail to provide for my area, just every month for the next year, to him, quite how they're doing on the USO and how much they're meeting it? I've tried to get this myself. I find it difficult, but if he could do it, I'm sure it would be more effective.
Well, can I take that away? I'm very happy to look at that, because I do believe in holding Royal Mail's feet to the fire. It may be an advantage if we can do that at a constituency level. I'm very happy to take that away if I could. I notice points that mail is sporadic, that often there's no mail, or that mail arrives late, resulting in missed appointments or fines, all those things, and these are very serious issues, and I can understand his frustration. I know he's had, as he said in his remarks, that he's had considerable contact with Royal Mail about service issues quite rightly. He's a very diligent member of Parliament, and we would urge colleagues to do the same. The Royal Mail reports that service in the area was disrupted due to sickness absence, in some parts of his operation being higher than average, and that wasn't a good picture across the board anyway. The time taken to recruit staff has also contributed to gaps in the service. It has acknowledged it's not been able to deliver a consistently high level of service to his constituents. I understand the issues are centred around the Ferndale and Mid-Rhondda delivery offices. In Ferndale, I understand that last month there were 6 members of staff absent, and some customers may have experienced disruption to their deliveries. Royal Mail has now advised that absence levels have since been reduced, with fewer members of staff currently absent through sickness. In Mid-Rhondda, there are currently three staff members absent on sick leave, and Royal Mail is currently recruiting an additional postal worker. Royal Mail reports it's currently delivering to all addresses served by both delivery offices 6 days a week when there is mail to deliver, and if postal workers cannot deliver on a given day, mail will be prioritised the next working day. We are assured it's actively working on measures to restore service levels, and while it tries to tackle the local service issues, no address will go without a mail delivery for more than 2 days. Clearly, he will tell me, he will update me on a regular basis if that proves not to be the case. I understand he was due to visit one of those centres, or both those centres, in March, but this was postponed. But he's looking at me very quizzically. Maybe that wasn't the case, but that's. Royal Mail will be in touch with him to try and arrange a new date if he'd like to go and visit again. And definitely we would urge Royal Mail to do that where constituency members of Parliament are not happy. So again, in terms of, he raises the point about complaints, and a very important point on complaints. There is, if he Googles the Royal Mail Customer Service Centre, which I'm sure he has, there's a phone number, there's an online form you can fill in. There's also an independent dispute resolution service, a postal redress service, which can try and resolve disputes, and citizens' advice also can provide assistance to constituents and constituency members of Parliament to resolve these particular issues. And again, of course, he can write to Ofcom to make sure they're aware of the service difficulties he's experiencing. In terms of his point about whether Royal Mail are obscuring the level of service, moving mail out into a van outside and bringing it back in, that would be totally unacceptable. And if there's evidence of that, please do raise it with me or directly with Royal Mail. He raises the points about banks, the lack of banks on high streets and lack of available cash. Of course, we've legislated for this, and post offices play a very important part in this, which I also look after, as he's aware of, but also banking hubs, and that may be something that will be a feature of some of the towns and villages in his constituency in the coming months and years. I also can just also say to him, I've just replied to his letter on counterfeit stamps, so you should receive a copy of that. He obviously acknowledged he has received a copy of that.
Can I try again?
Yes, of course.
It's just suddenly occurred to me that there might be a general election later on this year, and of course one part of what the post office is required to provide is the free post delivery. Just wonder how confident he is that the Royal Mail is going to be able to deliver this in a timely fashion to the right constituents in the right places across the whole of the country?
Well, that's a matter close to both our hearts and many other people who are in this room today. I've got to say, my own perspective, having met Martin Seidenberg, I'm not somebody who's easily convinced or who will easily pull over my eyes in terms of reassurances. I was very impressed by Martin Seidenberg, but people will only be convinced when service levels improve. I set out some of the ways they should be improving. Is a personnel issue, also some management issues around there, and I think there have been some steps forward, as I set out earlier, that should help to see the improvement secured that he wants to see and I want to see. So as I said before, I think it's not words, it is actions we want to see. Very happy to hear from members across the House and all members of this place to make sure that service levels are where we want them to be. We are absolutely committed to making sure we have a financially sustainable and efficient universal postal service for all users in all constituencies. And indeed, I would very much like to make sure that members of this House are able to bring concerns to me whenever they are disappointed with the local services or our constituents are. So please do make sure that I'm aware of difficulties that he sees on an ongoing basis. With that, I'll conclude my remarks. Mr Henderson.
The question is that this House has considered the Universal Postal Service Order in Rhondda constituency. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Of the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. Order. Order.